so neat. That's so neat to see all these people joining. Okay. Are we ready? Are we ready? Okay, everybody. Come on. Come on. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here into my studio in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And my name is Michael Markowsky, but you probably already know that. I imagine most of you took the class on Tuesday and have joined me now for part 2. If this is just something you happen to stumble upon, well, welcome, and I'm excited to have you here. You're welcome to go back and watch the first one, which is archived there forever, and catch up, or you could just jump right in off the deep end with us today. Either way, I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And I see there's like, I don't know, a couple dozen comments already pouring in here. And I checked about 5 minutes ago, and we already had 20 people on the stream, so that's exciting. We got kind of a big group. Just as a reminder, I'm going to sort of check the comments periodically, maybe every 15-20 minutes, and at the very end, I'm going to go through them all and then answer any particular questions that may have come up. So if you have a burning question or about any kind of tool or classes or anything else that I can't think of or I haven't answered during the show, stick around at the end and I'll get to your questions. And I just wanted to do a little bit of quick housekeeping here. Obviously, you know, if you're enjoying this and this is helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel. Click the little notification bell so that you get reminded of it. There's also links down below if you want to contribute a small amount of donation to help keep the show up and running. And I wanted to quickly acknowledge some of the people that did that last week. I was so excited. Melissa A. Lee sent some money. Angie Simpson, thank you. Sarah Sharouf, if I pronounce your last name right. if anybody is used to having their name butchered, it's a guy like me. Markowsky is the last name. I've heard Mark Mikowski is how one of my teachers used to refer to me. Jessica Lattis and Yannick Mangin. Is that how you say your last name, Yannick? He's been in many of my classes, and I've never thought about pronouncing your last name. And Selena Vasila. Thank you. So all of you, thank you so much for contributing. I really appreciate that. And it's not required. I just want to make sure I just want to say that I really do appreciate that, and that I wanted to make mention of that right off the top. So, okay, we've got 30 people on the line right now. So, what we need to draw is our pencil, or pencils. Maybe you got yourself a set of pencils over the last couple days, and you got some colored pencils. You got this one could use a little bit of sharpening, and I'm sure I've got dozens of pre-sharpened pencils around here somewhere. And maybe you've got an eraser. We talked about different kinds of tools last class. So have all of that stuff handy, your sketchbook, and okay, I guess I put away some of my other pencils, so I'm just gonna grab my pencil set and look inside here. And I've got a couple of nice sharp HB pencils, which are gonna work just fine. You know, you could just use like here. This is a pencil that was given to me. That's what I love about drawing, is you can use any tool. So we're all set up with our materials, and today is sort of like would have been like the second hour of a 2-hour class. So usually by this point in the class, we're all warmed up and we're ready to go and go into some longer drawings. Now, obviously, that's not the case because we're just kind of starting here cold. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a warm-up just to kind of get you back into form here. So I'm going to bring up a something for us to draw and bring this into the screen. Okay, so move that out of the way. So what we have on the screen is, this is actually a cutout, a piece of paper that Matisse, Henri Matisse, the famous French artist, that he cut out and then glued onto a piece of paper as part of a book that he made back in the 1930s. And this is now just a black and white version, just to simplify a little bit here. And we're going to do a little warm-up drawing based on this cutout. So, you know, you may be looking at that and thinking, oh, really? This looks kind of simple. Well, that's a good thing. So let's, we've got our sketchbook. And you know what? I also, when I do drawing here, I'm going to turn up, well, I'll get this started because what I want to do is set a little timer, because I like having a timer up and running while I'm drawing, just to kind of keep me on track. And this pencil's a little bit too sharp, so I'm just dulling it a little bit. Okay, so you can start wherever you want. You could start in the top, in the middle. I'm going to start down here on the bottom, and I'm warming up too. It's just like a musician wouldn't jump out onto the stage and start singing without doing a warm-up, or a ballerina wouldn't jump out onto the stage and start, you know, their big dance without doing a little bit of stretching. Neither would a drawer or a painter just launch right into something important, right? So we're just doing a nice flowing drawing to get started and get the creative juices pulsing through our system here. Okay. Oops, mine ran off the page a little bit on the bottom, but it's all there. Okay, so how about I'm going to give maybe just another, how should we say, another 20 seconds for people to catch up, and just because, you know, not everybody draws at the same speed, and that's something I've definitely noticed over the years. Okay. So I got my clock set up here, and I'm going to just bring myself back into the frame. So we've got a nice little warm-up ready to go. If you've finished that, you know, you could, there's a couple of things you could do. One of which is you could, let's say, use some watercolor paint. I don't have any, I mean, I have tons, but I don't have any just offhand. Let's say you could brush some color over top of it, and then once it's dry, cut it out, and then glue it onto a piece of paper, just like Matisse would have. In fact, that was how he worked. He was bedridden for kind of a long period, well, about 5-10 years towards the end of his life, and he had assistants painting big pieces of paper, and then he was sitting in his bed and he's cutting these pieces, and then he'd have an assistant glue them onto paper. And really kind of a playful part of his career, kind of towards the end, he really just, as a lot of artists tend to do kind of towards the end of their life, they just, maybe they feel like their mortality, and they just, I gotta make all this stuff. So here's a very simple drawing that Matisse did. Okay, and I think we're probably done there. Now, what is the next one that I want to do here? You know what? Let's do another kind of potentially, arguably silly warm-up drawing here. And I'm going to use another Matisse image here. So this is this is the cover to a series of poems that Matisse did, of the poems by Baudelaire, Fleurs du Mal, or the Flowers of Evil, I think is how that would translate. Kind of famous series of poems by Baudelaire. And so here's another kind of, like you can see, it's a little bit of an awkward drawing. Like it kind of starts, you can see where he began and ended. And you can go whatever direction you want. Well, let's just kind of go up and around. And up. And around. And up. And around. And then back around, and boom, right? And mine again is it's not exactly like the original, and you know, why don't we let's try doing a little cursive writing. When was the last time anybody did any cursive around here? So it's funny, this kind of dying art, the cursive. Fleurs du... Okay, so there's, right, so a kind of a silly drawing, but it's just about getting the hand moving around on the page here that I'm concerned about. Just about that feeling of movement, because usually when we're writing, our wrist is, I'll just cut to here, our wrist is sort of just going across the page like a typewriter, right? We're not used to moving all around like this. And then the other great thing with drawing is we don't even have to be relegated to drawing it kind of like with our sketchbook like this. We could rotate our sketchbook to make it easier, right? We could turn it all the way around, you know, And that is obviously something that you cannot do with, you know, writing. It would be ridiculous for somebody to be writing. I mean, well, I don't know if it's entirely ridiculous. Maybe that could... I've actually seen some poetry books that have been written that way. Okay, so let's go to... I'm just going to pick up kind of a little bit where we left off. I found... Where is it now? Okay. I'm going to bring this up. And... how do I want to do that? Let's... I think that will... Oh, actually, let's make that full size. Sorry, just all this technology, getting that to work. Okay. So here's another image I'm going to bring onto the screen. And this is a portrait that Matisse did. And actually, you know what? We're gonna do that exercise we did last class in which I rotated it. So I'm gonna put this there. Okay. So this is going to be a nice little exercise that we can do again. And if you're like, oh my goodness, we're using so many paper, we're 5 minutes into the class and I've used 2 pieces of paper on a warm-up, then go ahead, use the back side of a piece of paper, even though I said not to last time. So I'm going to actually rotate my sketchbook upside down. So you see the last drawing I did right now, that's upside down. And I'm going to try drawing this drawing upside down. Last class, I keep saying last week, and I know last week was just, or last class was just a couple days ago, but I'm just so used to saying last week because that's just when I'm teaching. I see people once a week, not twice a week. So I'm going to keep on accidentally doing that. Okay, so let's set a timer here for 4 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to set that timer. And where can I'm gonna put that maybe up there. Not to stress everybody out. But just so we don't spend all day on this drawing. Maybe some of you you're off to the races in drawing. This, we're going to try drawing it upside down. And you can start wherever you like. And you want to, when you're doing this kind of thing, you want to wait until the very end before you flip your paper around. I know it's so hard to resist the urge to want to see what you're doing and crane your neck and contort yourself in every conceivable way. Now we're drawing this person's face, so but it's possible that there's going to be a lot of distortion in your drawing. It's also possible you may surprise yourself with the results. So you can see I've put in generous amount of time to work on this drawing. And I'm going nice and slow. It's not a race. Again, we're on the road to warming up. So we can take our time. Just imagine yourself, you just got out of bed and you're stretching. And you want to be just allowing yourself to have a little bit of fun while you're doing this. And now when I look, I'm just going to move this. We got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left on the clock there. So we may cut it short here. I just don't want people to be too stressed out because I will stress you out in the future going a little bit faster than may feel comfortable. So here's my drawing. When I'm looking at it, I see that there's, the eyes are going to be a little bit different. I'm still resisting the urge to turn it, even though I'm done, but we'll turn them all together. And I think it's instructive right now just to kind of look like maybe the eye should have been a little bit different. Maybe the nose could be touching here. But doing this drawing upside down should help liberate us from the urge to be trying to work at this for accuracy, I guess, is the main reason why we would do this. Okay, so that was a 3-minute drawing. So I'm just gonna rotate my picture, and then I think I gotta turn this around so that you can see it. Okay, so look at that. Mine has some you could say flaws to it or inaccuracies. Am I concerned about that? Not really at all. Again, because it's my warm-up drawing, so it's important to be to not be hard on yourself, especially when you're doing this warm-up stuff. Okay, so the timer is now just about to go off. Okay, those of you who've taken my classes have probably heard those timers going on and off all the time, because I love using a timer while we're working. Great. Look at all these people joining. This is fantastic. Okay. So, I think we're going to... We're nice and warmed up. So, what I want to do now is... I want to... Oops, let's bring this over to the center. I'm going to talk... Where's... about... Oops, I wanted one with me in there somewhere. Let's put this... Oops. All this technology, it's just maddening sometimes, isn't it? Okay. So, okay, here we go. So, what we're looking at on the screen is some geometric shapes. So now that we're a little bit warmed up and done some kind of very loose kind of drawing, we're going to kind of go back into the left brain, into the more analytical part of our mind, and we're going to try drawing some of these basic shapes. And I know for some of you this is going to be really easy, and then for some of you this is really, really difficult. So we're going to start out on the ground floor. I always think of, like, I want all the ships to rise simultaneously. So some of you are at different levels. So I think it's helpful for us to do some of this, even if you can draw all this with your eyes shut. And if you think you're that good, then try doing it with your eyes shut. I think that would actually be a really interesting exercise. So let's you know what? I think we could do... let's do one of these with... I'm going to put myself in here, because... there we go. Okay. So, here's my sketchbook again. So the first thing that I want to draw is, let's learn to draw a cube. So the first, to draw a cube, we're going to start with, I'm going to draw this, I'm pressing a little bit harder so everybody can see. We draw a square. All right, and you may notice, some of my edges don't meet up. It's not a competition to make the best square ever. So we got one square, and let's do another square approximately the same size. So try to get it about that same size, and they're kind of overlapping. So you could imagine this is like a 2 sheets of plexiglass or overhead transparency film, you know? Okay, so we got these 2 things, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna join up the corners with 4 diagonal lines. So you see that? We got these 4 diagonal lines form a cube. So this looks like a cube made of glass, right? So let's try that again. We're gonna do, I'm gonna leave a little bit of space here. And again, you could see how big I'm doing these on a sketchbook. I have seen lots of people, like often I've had people, I forgot to show these last class, come to class with these tiny little sketchbooks that you know, are great because you could put them in your back pocket. They just might be a little bit small for our purposes right now when we're trying to learn. So we got 1 square, and this time we're going to do it overlapping this way. Right? You can see mine's not perfect. It's a little smaller. It's a little wonky, right? Okay. And then I'm going to join up the corners. All right. So we can see this box like that. Okay. Let's take this to the next level here. I am going to use a couple of different colored pencils, but you could still do this. I'll do it with colored pencils so you can see, and then I'm going to do it just back in black and white. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw that square out front. And then this one, I'm going to draw this, well, what I would try to do is draw it lightly. Let's get another color in here too. All right, so the whole thing you could draw very, very, very lightly. So for instance, I'll do this again here in black and white. So I don't want to go too lightly because you won't see it on camera, but imagine if I did this very lightly, so light that you can hardly see it. Right, so now I'm going to very lightly draw in those diagonal lines. So you see all that, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over top of some of my lines. Right, so you see now it's like those very lightly drawn lines are like guidelines. So now I'm going to draw 3 diagonal lines, just these 3. So when I see that, to me it looks like a table that has been tipped over onto its side. Do you see that? Do you see, let's say this is the top of the table, right here, this is the top of the table, right, and you've got all the cups and plates and stuff are smashed onto the table, onto the floor. And then, so we've got this, then I'm just going to connect these 2 lines. So now we've got this cube made of, let's say, wood, right? And I could, let's say, color one side in. Right. Next class, we're going to learn all about shading, so I'm not going to spend too much time showing you how to do that. But if I've drawn those guidelines light enough the first time, then I don't even need to use an eraser. But let's say, let's do this one more time. And this time I'm going to draw very lightly again. I'm going to try to draw as lightly as possible without, so that you can see on the screen. All right, so I've drawn this cube, connect the sides, and then maybe before I do anything else, while it's still really light, I'm going to erase some of those lines from my original cube, right? And then I'm going to go back over my pencil lines. All right. So it was sort of like what we did here, but I drew this light enough so I didn't even need to use eraser. Now this one I did. And now it kind of looks like this cube has come out perfectly formed. Okay, so I think all of this is working fine so far. Let's take it to the next level here, where just like we just did, I'm going to draw this one's, let's say, this time I'm going to start with, I'm going to draw pressing a little bit harder. But, you know, when in doubt, you can always press lightly when you're drawing. And then just like we've done the last two drawings, you can, when you're confident of where the lines should go, then you can go back over them, right? So that way you don't have to be erasing constantly if you draw very lightly. Now this time, I'm going to draw 3 diagonal lines. So I'm switching it up. I'm drawing the box from a different angle. So 3 lines like this. Right, so, and then when that's done, I'm just going to connect this. So this way I didn't even need to draw lightly or to do any erasing. I just drew it. I went straight to the drawing. So no, this, what we just did, might be difficult for some people. So if jumping to this, and let's say I might have confused you by drawing it from a different angle, so I'm just going to do another one, a little smaller one down here, like that. So this is kind of fun because you can, what I would, if nothing else, just try experimenting with this. Try drawing this table that's been flipped over and try to think of as many different ways that you can draw it. Which way have I not yet done? Okay. Oops, can you see all that? I'm getting close to, I have to always look at the screen to make sure I'm not running off. Okay, the page. Okay, so, what I'm going to do now, we've done some cubes. You know, if you're here and you want to add a little bit extra color, then I'll just show you the way that I'm holding the pencil. So rather than trying to just color like this, because it's going to take you a long time, I showed you last week, you can put the pencil down and then you've got like your claw comes down, picks up the pencil this way, right? So I've got it kind of held in my hand like that. And then if I want, I could shift a finger up and then I can use the side of my pencil. And we're going to use this technique a lot going forward. So it's worth kind of trying it out. So let's say I do this on this side. I pick up a different one. Again. And then I color it in. And then we could use another slightly different color. And I put that on the table. Boom. And color it in, right? So depending on what colors you use, it could create an optical illusion. Like, so when you look at this drawing, some people may see this is the front of the box and this is the bottom and this is the side, right? And then some other people may look at this box and see this is, let's say, a box that's been, you know, these two this side has been cut off and we have the back side and the bottom, and the inside. So this is the inside of a box. Does anybody see that? It's an optical illusion, right? You can see. So M.C. Escher famously played with our vision that way. So we've got a bunch of cubes that we've done. Let's take this to another level here. Let's draw some rectangles. So we can start out with a square. So let's draw a square. And then let's draw another square, and this time I'm going to make my square a little bit smaller. So this can get a little challenging, because what we want to do is, and again, I can turn my sketchbook, which is one of the great things with drawing, right? And then, because if that might make it a lot easier to connect those lines, I can connect like that. That one's pretty straightforward. Now let's draw through here, right? And it can help just to kind of point out to yourself, go, here's the corner, and this is the corner, this is where I want to go, boom, right? And then here's these two corners, let's connect there, right? And then, just like that, we've got our rectangle, right? And you, depending on the way that you draw this, so let's do this again, and just so you can see the two different kind of perspectives in this one drawing. So let's say we've got this one here, and then I'm going to very lightly draw these lines to connect. And then I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to erase a little bit here. So I did that a little bit too dark. And then I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be the very front of this box. So I'm going over top of it. And then I'm going to join up these corners. Boom. And let's say I could shade that down. So this is the bottom of that box, if that's helpful to see. And then, and there's maybe this line is a little distracting, so I'm just going to erase that right out. Okay. And then I'm going to do another version of it again. And this, I should draw lightly here. And then here's another square, connecting my corners up. And this time I want to make this the front of the box. And then I'm going to join that up. And if this gets a little confusing, then I'm just going to erase some of these lines. And then okay, so, and if that's, okay, so you can see two very different, right? Maybe I'll just put a little bit of shading on one side here. So, I'm just going to say this is A, and this is A. Those are the sides of this, I don't know, shape that are closest to us. Does that make sense? So in this way, we sometimes if you look at that, you're like, oh, this is making me dizzy because it's kind of flipping back and forth. So just by deciding to emphasize certain lines here, all of a sudden this box kind of pops in different directions. Okay. So you can obviously, you could just do this again to play with all sorts of different kinds of things. You got a box and just start connecting them, and you could even do it on diagonals. If you really, okay, here's for somebody who's like, this is too easy. Well, let's try something. I'm like, what have I done to myself? Okay, we got one here, one here, this one, and this one. So let's say this is probably not the best example, but we can imagine this kind of shape kind of contorting. All right, so let's say this is one side. I don't know, this does kind of looks a little bit, probably did the worst version of this contortion, but the idea is maybe this is a box that is being twisted or something, right? So, I mean, your mind is the only limit for how this can go with these boxes, right? And you, just by turning these on the side, you know, we could imagine that this is a building that we're looking at. Like this is a building we're flying over, or both of them are buildings that we're flying over. Or if you've seen, what was that, Ready Player One? Did anybody see Ready Player One? And they go kind of under the city and they're driving those cars underneath the city. And you can kind of, so you can imagine, let's say you're underneath the sidewalk right here, and this is a building you see going up above. That might be a little bit too difficult to imagine that, but anyway, okay, so we've got some squares, cubes, rectangles. Let's now progress to, let's do some cylinders now. So let's start out with a circle. And now a lot of people find drawing circles really difficult. So there's no real trick to it, it just takes practice. Right, so try to draw, you know, and you can do this by just going around and around and around, and slowly you're gonna, if you just keep on going, you're gonna develop some kind of like a nice kind of circle, right? So let's say you've done that. Let's do another one about the same size below it. It doesn't have to be exactly the same size, and it can be a little bit off to one side or the other. Right? Look at mine. Mine isn't the same size either. Right? And so then, if we've got this, and let's say even just say at this point, I can then kind of go over it. It's maybe not, I kind of went too dark for you all to see, but I can try to go and make one line or the circle stand out a little bit over the others. And then I'm going to look for the outside points. So you could almost imagine like you're taking a ruler. You don't need a ruler, but, and I hit these outside edges. All right, so I could do, that's where the outside edge is here. And I guess I'll just use a ruler just to show you. We're going to do this a few times, so I'll do it without a ruler in a moment. So you see how I've kind of hit those outside edges? And then with this cylinder, I'm just going to go back up and around. And then I can even go back up the edges of here. So when I look at this, this kind of looks like a cup, right? A cup of water. And if I wanted to turn this into a cup of water, let's say I'm going to add another circle inside, maybe just a little bit smaller. All right, so let's say, and then because you know the glass has a little bit of thickness to it, so we got a little bit of water in here, and maybe this is the back edge of that glass. And those of you that have taken my painting class in the past, and we paint the Matisse, right? So here's like a cup, right? We've got the bottom of the cup, and if we wanted to, you know, let's say make this, turn this into a real drawing, I could give it a little bit of color, some water in the cup. I'm just going to quickly, just so you can kind of get some idea of what that could look like. And let's say I'm just gonna fine tune this with another color. I'm just doing this because I want you to see that I can take a sketch, just a little throwaway thing, and try to make it into something. So here's my water in the cup. Kind of went a little bit. Anyway, you get the idea, I think, right? So hopefully my big head wasn't in the way the whole time I was drawing. So let's just do this again really quickly. Let's try to, this time I'm going to draw lightly going around, and you could see, well, I can't go too light for our purpose, but you know, when I'm doing this with, especially, you know, I'm teaching children, I'll say, okay, I want everybody to draw a circle really lightly on the page, so lightly that I don't want to be able to see it. You're the only one that can see the circle on your page, right? And everyone's like, okay, I'm going to draw this next circle, right? I'll make this, oops, you can't see my big head in the way. Right, and then I'll come around to the desks and I'll go, I asked you to draw a circle. Are you not going to follow the instructions to draw? And they're like, oh, I did. And then everyone laughs because it's so lightly drawn, right? But just to enforce the point of, because there's some people that press so hard every single time they're drawing, and then we can't see anything, or it's very hard to erase, and then they get really frustrated. So we've drawn these lightly drawn circles, and then I'm just going to go over. I think I need a different pencil here. This one's a little bit, okay, just took off some of the edge off that. I personally don't like drawing with a really dark pencil, or sharp pencil, I mean. Okay, and then we come down, and oops. It's tricky to draw on this when I can't get my head right over the surface. I gotta kind of be off to the side, so. I'm also used to drawing on a dry erase board in front, and you're kind of like drawing off the side. Anyway, so we've got now this cylinder here, and again, if this was made of wood, let's say this is a dowel, right? You've just got from the hardware store. It could look like that, or it could look like a pop can or something, right? Let's say it's got a. We'll just put a little label on here. This is some sort of, I don't know what this is, some kind of product from, right, so I got a little label on the side here. Maybe, okay, so here we are drawing a cylinder, and now we're gonna kind of take this to another level. So so far we've been drawing circles. Let's try to now draw an oval shape. So we're gonna draw some of these for maybe another. How long do we want to go for here? We're gonna draw shapes for another 10 minutes, and then we're gonna do some fun little drawings at the end, and then call it a day. And if any questions, don't forget to put them into the description. Okay, so here's another kind of cylinder. You could see this is not perfect. I could care less, right? And then I'm joining my edges up, and then I can erase the bottom down here. Right, and then I come up and around. Okay, let's try this again. Let's do this one. We're gonna make like a can of tuna or something, right? Let's do another oval, and it might take you a little while to get it, right? So we're just gonna loop around. After you've practiced this for many times, it's much easier to do one without that, right? But for our purpose, this might be the first time in a long time you've tried to draw an oval, so. Okay, and then I'm gonna connect these. This looks like hand's been was a little warped, but all right. And then I could, let's say I'm going to erase that. There we go. We could also you want to try to even experiment with making your cylinders really, see if you can make them really narrow. All right, so that, because if you're looking at sometimes at a object from the side, like let's say even a tin can, it could look like a rectangle, right? Until you tilt it down until you're into your field of view. I don't, well, I have some camera lenses, for instance, right? Let's say if I hold this right in front of the camera like this, it appears to be totally square until I start turning it, and then we see the top of the cylinder, right? And it's kind of and then by the time it gets to here, it's a circle, right? And now we can't see the sides at all. I know it seems all straightforward stuff, but so since this is, I don't want to stress anybody out using their nice pages for all these silly drawings. Let's try just doing some more. We're going to draw a few more cylinders. Or actually, you know what? Let's, well, we can practice some different views of cylinders. Just like I was just doing, since might as well connect what I'm talking about to what we're doing here. And then, oh, look at that. All right, so this kind of is just practicing drawing our cylinders. Or not cylinders, I keep saying cylinders, interchangeable with, I mean, ovals. Ovals, and then we get to a circle. So this is helpful, and this is going to be really helpful for next class. So we've got this done. Why don't we take this and let's draw some cones. So we could start out with, we'll do a circle. A circle, and then we can just add a triangle under it, right? We can do the same thing with an oval. We can do an oval and then add a triangle, or not a triangle, just a V shape, right? Now, if you're wondering, like, how do I get, because maybe you've done something like this. How do I get, so to get the cylinder, you could, if you wanted, you could sort of draw a line halfway down and connect it like that, right? So you know where this point is going to be. And we can do very narrow ones. Right? And of course, we could do it the other way. We can do this. Once you've got your drawing in here. So, like that, right? So I would encourage you to experiment with a bunch of these. Let me see, I want to see if I should, starting to get close on time. Let's just do a quick little introduction to some kind of pyramid or prism-like forms. So let's say we've got a triangle, since we've just been drawing cones, right? So if we drew a triangle, and this could be a cone that we don't see the top or the bottom in at all, right? So it's just a triangle. Let's do the same thing we've done in the past. Let's draw, like we did with the cube, we'll draw another triangle, and then we can connect the corners. All right, and so we'll do this again. This one's going to be a little bit challenging because we're going to have some lines running almost on top of one another. That's okay. I think that's going to be good for our purposes right now in terms of shapes, because some of you are like, "Oh, this is exhausting," but the sort of the purpose of doing these shapes like this, and this is stuff that you can do while you're sitting on hold with the phone company or gas company, or you're at the doctor's office, or you're just taking a break instead of just scrolling mindlessly through Facebook, which I'm guilty of. I'm not making any judgments, but instead of just doing that, is take a piece of paper and just do a little bit of this practicing. If this is really, really difficult, the only way it's going to get easier is if you practice it. And then eventually there's that aha moment where it starts making sense and you can start doing it faster. If this is really easy, then challenge yourself by moving the one end to the other, make it bigger or smaller or a different shape. Like, let me see, just to kind of go back to this, just if other people want one extra little thing. Let's say if you were doing a cylinder, you could do even just, let's say, we could just connect these two right here, right? They have different tops and bottoms, or this one here, different top and bottom, different top and bottom, right? And let's see, I'm just gonna, oops. So then you can decide to kind of color something in. So they don't, because actually, as we get going and start doing things in perspective, rarely are the top and bottom going to be exactly the same. One's going to be slightly different. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to the last couple of drawings for today. And I'm going to bring it up onto the... Which one do I want to... How do people feel here? I mean, I could go all day. I love doing this stuff, so I'm a super geek about it, so I could... we could keep on drawing. You know what? I think what I'm going to do... This is what I'm going to do. We're going to do one more loose drawing to kind of finish the session off. And then while I go through your comments, I'm going to put up a little bit more complicated one for you to draw if you want to draw along with me. Maybe I'll do that while I'm going through some of the comments. That's what I'm going to do. Figuring all of this out in real time here. So let's bring... Oh, why does that come up? Give me 1 second. Let's go single page. Ah! Okay, it's not going to cooperate, so... One second. Okay, I think that's going to work. Okay, so I'm going to bring that down here. So this drawing, I love this drawing. This is by... Oh, this hand has just been trimmed out of here. 1 second. We're going to do this. Let's do it correctly. Okay, just replace it, moving that over a bit. Okay, so, and then let's say, how long should we go for? We're going to set a timer for 4 minutes, I think should be enough time. So I'm just going to move that off to the side so you're not stressing about it. So this here is some dancers by Picasso. So what I want you to do is try doing this drawing on your sketchbook. Let's go use a nice big blank page, and I'll draw this along with you. If we run out of time because we're going too slow, that's okay. We will just add a little bit more time. But I do want to see if I can get a lot on the page here. You could already see mine's already a little weird and distorted. That's okay. And I can't even figure out where this began and ended. And oh, here I'm right at the edge of my paper. That's okay. I'm just going to build it into my drawing. And that arm is just going to be a little bit smaller. So this is kind of like how we began today's class with. Oh, and this one came back around. Okay, there's one. I've got still, you know, a couple of 2.5 minutes. If I need more time, we'll just add more time. But it is one of the reasons why I do like having a timer is it just helps. It kind of helps prevent me from. Well, it does a number of different things. One of which is it just sort of keeps me moving. Because if I think like, okay, I've set a timer for 5 minutes, then it's harder for me just to get really bogged down into details. Because I go like, oh, okay, well, I got 3 minutes left to keep on moving forward here. When I do sketches for like a project, so currently I'm working on a graphic novel, a comic book, a big thick comic book about the life and death of the artist Tom Thompson. I don't know if anyone's heard of Tom Thompson. If you're Canadian, you may have seen his work all over the place on postage stamps and coins, and I don't think it's been on a dollar bill yet, but so he lived 100 years ago and died under very mysterious circumstances. He was a real figure. And so I'm drawing a comic book about him, but while I was doing the planning for it, so I still got 40 seconds, while I was doing the planning for it, I would sketch everything out, and I would put a timer on my phone and say, okay, we're going to sketch this whole page of the comic book out in 10 minutes. I'm going to do the whole page in 10 minutes, sketch it out. And there's this frantic, like, oh, I've got to keep moving forward. And that was really helpful. I was able to do the whole comic book that way, so that I didn't get too, it helped prevent me from, obsessing over making something perfect. Okay, just bring this. There's our timer. Just bringing myself back up on the screen here. And let's see, I'll give one more minute for people finishing this up. Obviously, you could take this and you could pause and try it again. Another fun activity, which we're going to do in the future, but if you want something to do over the weekend, is to try doing this drawing without looking at your hand on the page. So you're just sort of, you know what? I'm going to do one right now. I'm going to do one like that right now. Why not? Let's have a little bit of fun. And there's still lots of people online here. We got most of you here. So while I kind of kill a little bit of time, I'm going to stare at the screen, and I'm going to draw without looking at my hand. And this requires a great deal of self-control, because you want it's almost like an uncontrollable need to want to look at your hand, right? And oh, where does this next line go? I can't remember. So I'm just going to pick it up and draw. And this is going to result in a really bizarre, silly drawing. I already know. Now, I could be trying to cheat and try to look out of the corner of my eye to see things. But why? Like, how could that possibly benefit me? Or, this is an exercise just for you to kind of loosen up and I'll just let go. Okay. Okay, so I haven't even looked at my drawing yet. I think I put all the pencil lines that need to be on there, and now I'm going to take a look at my sketch, the sketch I did, right? Which is a pretty bizarre looking drawing, kind of silly. You might go like, it was a garbage drawing. Well, I don't know, but it's something. I would say whenever I do this with students in class, it generally gets a good laugh, and then there's a bunch of people like, oh, and I ask, like, how did you feel about your drawing? And there's some people, yeah, it turned out pretty much exactly as I thought it would, like a really, really bad drawing. And then there are some people who are like, wow, actually, it would turn out way better than I thought it would. Okay, so, I think, so I don't know, some of you may not be totally done here. At the risk of doing, if you want to continue, you can pause the stream, because I think right here, if you've been watching and you're kind of like, oh my goodness, or it's like 5 o'clock and I gotta get my kids to whatever, or you know, so if you want to call it a day there, I really appreciate you joining us and for making a drawing with us. Please do me a great favor, if nothing else, just to like this video. That would be hugely helpful. The more likes, the algorithms go, then it means it'll pop up in other people's feeds, and then they'll be more likely to watch it. And the more people that are drawing, the better of a world we're all going to live in, because drawing just is a great way to release tension and to express ourselves. Not everybody's really good at talking like me am, right? So the more people who are able to express themselves in more different ways, and I think the less violence we're going to have out there, the less depression and anxiety. I feel whenever I'm drawing, I sometimes can lose track of time, and I just feel kind of refreshed, right? It's a kind of meditative practice, and that's where I want you to get to, which is hard at first because you're so obsessed with how many mistakes you're getting. But anyway, so if you can like the video, subscribe, hit the little notification bell. If you want to make a small PayPal donation, the link is in the description down below. As well as when this is done, I'm going to do the timestamp so that you can jump to whatever part a little bit easier. While you're so what I want to do, how could we do this? Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to see if I can make this really big on the screen. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to put this here. And just like we did or towards the beginning, here's another drawing. This is a portrait by Matisse, or Picasso, of one of his 10 wives or whatever. Not somebody that you want to follow in terms of lifestyle and everything, but one of these weird situations where an incredibly amazing artist who changed our culture, but a bit of a creep. Anyway, so this drawing, you could try drawing upside down, and I'm just going to, while that's happening, I'm just going to go over some of the comments, see if there's any burning questions. Over the weekend, while I'm just thinking, is a good idea would be to just try doing like a little bit of this, the drawing of shapes over and over and over again. Just, you know, have some fun. Try drawing a square that somehow connects to a triangle or a cylinder. And, you know, you could spend the rest of your life really practicing that. And if you did, you could be like somebody like M.C. Escher, who, you know, whose artwork is all over the place. All of those abstract, or they're abstractions of reality, these optical illusions of people walking upside down on stairs, etc. And that's just by practicing that basic shape building. Heidi, I remember at the very beginning, you wrote here that one of the artists you really admired was Robert Bateman. Huge, which I'm actually a big fan of his work. I know he's not necessarily the most popular in high fine art circles, but I did a master class with him a couple years ago. Highly recommended. I mean, and he's late 80s, I want to say, and he, you know, those classes for a whole week long of him in class from like 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Like, wow, and he's just somebody who makes a lot of work. I really admire Robert Bateman, and he did a lot of great paintings, but also some really great drawings too, which you can find. He's got a great museum in Victoria, British Columbia, right there on the water across from the Parliament building. Anybody been there? I don't know. It's probably not open these days right now, unfortunately. Yannick says really likes Van Gogh's early drawings. Van Gogh, amazing drawer. We're gonna look and we're gonna draw some drawings based on Van Gogh as we go for sure. Shannon, Dali, Gustav Klimt. I'm thinking the famous drawing, The Kiss, surrealism. Absolutely, I love some of those surrealist images, and obviously Mustache is takes some cues from Salvador Dali. Inescapable connection, obviously. Yeah, Pop Art 2, Peter. Hey Peter, nice to see you again. I like comic book art. I think this is interesting when an artist takes an older style, like the Fleischer Superman cartoons, and makes it for a modern comic book. Yeah, wow, that's a deep cut there. The Fleischer Superman. Those are like from the maybe 40s or 50s. Really cool cartoons, and it reminds me a lot of the cartoons that they made for Batman in the 90s, I think I'd have to say. I love that early animation. I've taught animation and taught drawing for animation at Emily Carr, and we spend a lot of time looking at those early animation and because all this fundamental stuff, drawing shapes, is what hand-drawn animation's all about. Elizabeth, yeah, when I saw your comment, thanks for that. I was like, the sound was on at the very beginning, and I'm doodly-doodly, and I'm like, oh, I hope I didn't blurt out my PIN for my bank card or something. So thanks for your tip there to turn the sound off. Heidi says, Kimmett and Iris Scott as an artist. I'm not familiar with that that artist, or those two artists. I'll have to look that up. Thanks for the tip, Heidi. Dorothy, ready? Yeah, Wendy, be able to draw portraits as well as flowers. We're going to be doing some drawings of flowers towards the end of this course. I also do teach a portraiture and landscape class that, you know, if this whole quarantine thing keeps on going, I probably will end up teaching that class as well. So stick around. Make sure you're subscribed so you see those notifications. Joe says likes flowers and portraits too. Yeah, absolutely. So Steven, my wife's uncle, is on here. Say hi to Karin for me, Steven. But the spinny thingy, beans. I'm not sure what that meant. Hi, beans. Yeah, and Edie, yeah, Edie was calling out there, our 8-month-old daughter. If you heard her upstairs, yes, that was her. Mary Ellen, any tips on how to make your pencil go where your eye intends it to go? When trying to draw a circle. Good question. You know what? That next class, we're going to be talking about that. Not drawing circles, but remind me if I forget, because that's definitely a big part of the beginning to the next class. Is like how to develop that hand-eye coordination. Great question. Great question. And also Amy's aunt, my wife's aunt as well. So great to see so many family too. I love it. Shannon says this is fun. Sam, yeah, let's go all day. Oh, I gotta eat. Unless somebody wants to deliver me some pizza or something. Loves motion, Steven says. Let it. Oh, Amy says, let it go, let it go. Don't look at your pencil no more. And then my video gets taken down by Disney. Yeah, Steven, got a feel for the motion. You're welcome, Steven. Thank you. Wendy says she likes a timer. Could help with the speed. Yes. Yeah, we're working with special needs kids in the classroom. You know, one of the most amazing things I've found is I've also done a lot of work with special needs children and adults, and I have seen some amazing things, like people who come into a room and can't communicate verbally, or like really physical and angry. You put a piece of paper in front of them and then they start drawing, and then whoosh, the whole world just disappears and just this amazing stuff comes out. And it's just a great reminder that our world is set up for talking and writing and reading, and we assume that those are the only ways that we can communicate with one another, and we forget that movement, drawing, sculpture, music, or all these other ways for us to communicate and also to just release our tension. So good on you, Wendy, for the work that you do. And Peter says, can you talk about when you would use a kneaded eraser versus a standard white or pink eraser? So, great question. So, an example would be, like, I personally use these kneaded erasers all the time. I like being able to, I mean, they're just fun. Maybe it's this is my fidget spinner. Whenever I don't know what to do, like, let's see, what are we gonna do, right? So you can play with the eraser, but it's really handy for if you're doing a drawing that's kind of delicate and you want to be able to erase something and you don't want to have to smudge your hand over it. Versus, do I have one of them? I don't. I know I have probably 50 of them. The white erasers, like you were talking about, or the Orange erasers I don't use very often, like these ones that are on the back of the pencil, because for one thing, often well, this one's not going to do it, but if you use it, especially the first time, they're covered with wax and they can actually leave a mark on the page. And they're kind of abrasive. Like if I was to use this eraser a lot, I'd actually start taking some of the paper, you know, I'd be ruining the paper. So all the erasers I like using are non-abrasive. They're not going to wreck the paper at all. Good question. And so, you know, if I use, let me see, do I have this previous one? Do I have? Let me see, I'm just gonna, I don't know if anybody's still working on this drawing or not, but I'm just gonna keep it up. So let's say if I was using this one again and I start erasing, right? And now I've got all of this residue all over there, right? Let's say that drawing, which I wasn't quite happy with anyway, like I mean, this is an exaggeration. This type of eraser really falls apart quickly, but all of them tend to, right? So if I go like this, now I could end up smudging, and then I got stuff on my hands. Oh, why don't we bring our favorite little guest on here? Oh, hey everybody, all of my new friends that are tuning in. This is our daughter, who I've mentioned a few times. This is who is making all the noise upstairs. This is our daughter, Edie Lowe. She's 8.5 months old and a super sweet, best girl in the world. Sleeps about 12 hours a night. My wife's off camera here like, no, not really. But, well, or 10 hours, 9 hours, or somewhere in between. Sometimes up a little bit earlier or sleep a little bit later. Anyways, I love this little girl. She's just fantastic. And we're just about done, so I think you can keep her for a second. We went for a little bit of a walk today, didn't we? And we're eating some dandelions. Hopefully somebody doesn't get sick later on. Okay, I'm just going to answer a few more of these comments. People keep leaving comments. I mean, I don't mind. I don't know if this is a waste of your time, but there's still 30 people watching me respond to comments. So, or maybe they're drawing. Who knows what you guys are up to out there. I hope that answered your question, Peter. Iris, so Heidi says Iris Scott is from New York. Okay. Wonder, I'll look at her work right after this. Laura Blue Star says, I would highly recommend checking out the hashtag Between Art and Quarantine on Instagram. Challenge for people to remake art pieces, and they're so good. Oh, are those like people take photographs of themselves posed in, dressed up as the girl with the pearl earring by Vermeer and that kind of thing? I've seen a few of those. They are pretty funny. Anything that gets people looking at art and trying to do creative things themselves, I'm a huge encourager of. Let me see. Steven says, the upside down drawing of the woman turned out great as I don't have anyone looking over my shoulder. So I don't feel like I have to measure up to anyone else in the class. That's great. Actually, that's a great benefit. I do notice when I teach in class, and sometimes people get really self-conscious about their drawings. I'd say anybody does, even a professional artist. Sometimes you're even while we're doing this here, I feel like, oh geez, and everyone's looking at me like, wow, why am I taking lessons from this guy if look how you can't even draw a circle, or what's going on, right? So it sometimes takes a little bit of practice to get over that that self-consciousness, that anxiety, that fear of failure, and it just comes with practice. But you know, this is if you're feeling kind of overwhelmed with those feelings, doing this kind of stuff from the privacy of your own home, no one has to know that you're drawing. You can keep your sketchbook in a locked cabinet in the garage, and or I've had teachers. I remember we had a drawing teacher a long time ago in art school who, I remember we spent like an hour doing these drawings, and then he's like, okay, everybody, let's take your drawings, let's go outside. And then we just tore them all up into small pieces, and of course some people were like, this is the best drawing I've done. But the whole point was, yeah, and you're gonna be able, now you've done it, you can do another one, and you're gonna do an even better one, right? So there's my mom, says she's enjoying these classes. I hope you're drawing along with us, Mom. Anybody can draw, right? Even Edie. Edie's going to be doing these soon here. She's going to be teaching these classes soon. Yes, and Heidi, yes, the erasers don't leave anything behind. And Steven says, I have a special black eraser that does not leave a mess on the page. Well, I know these kneaded erasers, after a little while, become like a black eraser, because they're literally sucking up all of the pencil marks. So they do get kind of gross after a while, and if you put it in your pocket, it's going to collect all the lint, which is why you can get these little, some of those you can get kneaded erasers that come with a little case, or I wrap them in some wax paper and put them in my pocket. Oh, people saying our daughter is adorable and cute. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, so the young artist in residence, and she does amazing finger paintings. Well, thank you, everybody. I think that's the end of the comments there, and I really appreciate everybody for sticking around and for participating so enthusiastically, especially in the comments. It's really it just makes me feel like I'm not talking into the vacuum of space, which can sometimes, when you're doing something like this, makes you feel like is there anybody actually out there? And maybe you feel that way, that you're out there all by yourself in the world, but there's still 24 people who are kind of maybe in the same place as you, who've jumped off the deep end and are learning a new skill. So you are not alone, right? So having said that, stay safe and get some drawings, practice some of this stuff over the weekend. If you want to try doing some of these drawings, and you see a drawing by an artist you like, do what we've just did, flip it upside down and see if you can draw it that way. That will sort of take out some of the pressure of trying to make it perfect, because there's no way you're going to make it perfect if you're drawing it upside down. Okay, we've got a little squirrely worm here. You guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you are. Again, like, subscribe. If you want to donate, that's super appreciated. Appreciate it. Goodbye, everybody.